Joining me now is Judy Woodruff. She's a senior correspondent for the PBS NewsHour. She also covered the Carter White House for NBC News and covered Jimmy Carter from the State House, from his first days in politics, really.
Very first days in politics.
There you were in Atlanta.
I was a year and a half out of college. Had just been hired by the CBS affiliate in Atlanta, and my assignment was to cover Georgia politics. And guess who was running for governor? Peanut farmer from South Georgia who had tried 4 years earlier and failed, but who was determined he was going to be elected. And he defied all expectations, defeated the former governor, Carl Sanders, and others, went on to serve, he could only serve one term at that time under Georgia law. And before we knew it, Andrea, we were hearing rumors that he and his team were thinking about running for president of the United States.
And did it seem completely improbable?
Which seemed completely improbable. He had already made a kind of a name for himself as this unlikely governor in the South, the so-called New South, because when he was inaugurated, he said the time for racial segregation, or racial discrimination is over. And so he had a little bit of he had developed an identity, but the idea that he was going to vault over senators and other governors who were much better known than Jimmy Carter was.
I have to confess that I first met him in 1972 at the Democratic Convention in Miami, and the governor of Pennsylvania, whom I was covering as a local reporter, said, "I want you to meet my friend Jimmy Carter from Georgia. He's going to be our nominee 4 years from now." And I looked at the governor of Pennsylvania and at the governor, at Governor Carter, as though, they were both crazy.
Well, Milton Schaap, I think that's
right,
who it
exactly.
was. I wish somebody had whispered that in my ear in 1972, because I didn't know until later. But Andrew, as I watch these ceremonies today, the services honoring him, they have the stamp of Jimmy Carter all over them.
How do they? Because there's so much, not pomp and circumstance, but there's pageantry involved for any former president, and it does seem different than the Jimmy Carter we knew when you were covering him full-time in the White House, carrying his own bags, not wanting Hail to the Chief.
Absolutely, eschewed all of that, didn't want Hail to the Chief played, didn't like all the trappings, and yet I think it's fair to say he, his family, his staff have spent years planning these services over 11 or 12 days, meticulously, down to the smallest detail, stopping at the Navy Memorial yesterday, the horse-drawn caisson with
the memorial,
his casket.
because he was a submariner.
He served a submariner, the only I think president to serve to go to the Naval Academy ever. And then today, what you're seeing is, among others, it's the public, but the family wanted to set aside every hour a different part of Jimmy Carter's life, whether it was health care, the opening to China, the Middle East, Habitat for Humanity, every aspect of his very, very busy, jam-packed life, they've set aside as a moment to pay tribute to the president. And so it's a reminder of just how broad his impact was.
And we now realize, thanks to your reporting and Jonathan Alter's biography, there was so much more in the presidency itself, as you've just recounted, the opening to China. Panama Canal is so newsy right now. He took political risks.
He did, and he often did it without thinking about the politics, because we all know it's been written over and over again. He was not someone who cared about politics. He was much more interested in results and policy. He was a policy wonk, I think it's safe to say, a detail man. So he did take risks. He did things, cancel water projects that were the favorite of congressmen. But in so doing, he was able to leave a mark that lasts.
Well, and in watching him in Habitat, and I know you were one of the few selected to eulogize Rosalynn Carter last November. So now, the marriage itself was so special.
For sure.
What you said
I was incredibly honored. And Andrea, wonderful to be with you, because you and I go way back to the Carter days.
And Plains, Georgia. And he'll be returning there. Judy, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you.